finish on that? Or do you want
No,
me to
you
go
can
on?
finish on that. You can, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, sport, I firmly believe anyway, is an entertainment. And it's not just about what happens on track, it's the whole encompassing body of it. And we're getting more and more of that in the four-wheeled world and more of it in the two-wheeled world. In fact, MotoGP is, in my opinion, more entertaining on track week in, week out than Formula One ever is. So that, and that's just from watching the first half of this season before the summer break, so it's amazing where the different bits of entertainment can come through. Speaking of entertainment though, and we have already touched on this as well, and it sounds like, Keith, you're firmly in the believing that this technical freeze will not be extended. It will come to an end when it's supposed to at the end of this season. Of course, it was brought in to help the teams out because of the COVID-19 struggle and the potential financial impact and all of that. It also filtered down to Moto2 and Moto3, where the whole motorcycle was frozen until 2022, whereas just in MotoGP, to maintain the fairness and I suppose, and I've got this on quote, to maintain fairness and equality in order to conserve the entertainment value of the sport and integrity of the competition. And that freeze is until 2022, so they're keeping the same engine as they had in 2020. So with that in mind, surely, if the freeze is lifted, we're going to get a bit of disparity coming through again, aren't we? And is that going to ruin the entertainment factor that we're currently seeing?
I think that Dorna, Erta and the Manufacturers Association will manage this very well. It's not a case of suddenly it's going to be carte blanche, do what you like, chuck as much money out you like, come out with a bloody 22-speed gearbox or something ridiculous. It will still be within the parameters of the rules, of course, and that in itself limits hugely what you can do. When it comes to Moto3, Moto2, I would imagine that they will limit the step forward, because you don't want it to be out of order. You don't want it to suddenly be out of control. They've got bigger issues to be dealing with anyway. They've got to deal with the track limit situation, the rules for slipstreaming and so on and so forth, or waiting for a tow, or there's other things that they can deal with on that. Moto2, it didn't really matter with Moto2 that they had a freeze, because the Triumph was a perfectly adequate motorbike as soon as they'd finished doing their testing, and that hit the streets, if you like. The 765 Triumph, the electronics, everything worked as a great package. It's been reliable, it's been fast, it's given us great entertainment. So that box ticked. MotoGP is the one that's got to be managed, and that's where the Manufacturers Association come in, because they all have to agree. It's not just a case that one can break away, from this. It has to, at the end of the day, it has to be agreed across the Manufacturers Association where they go next. What are they going to be allowed to do? Is there going to be what's going to get untangled from the freeze? Is it all going to be a free for all, or is it going to be a step by step management through the year? What have people been working on back in the factories? I don't know. I mean, I've not heard a single whisper. Where is it coming from? Aero is obviously something that's still in its infancy in motorbikes, pretty much. There's probably going to be some aero achievements that people are going to be looking for. I daren't ring up Danny Aldridge, technical director at Trackside, because he'll know why I'm ringing him to start with, because I haven't spoken to him for ages. And he's a good mate of mine, and it's always difficult when you ring up your friend to try and get information about his profession. Yeah. It's a bit of a pact I've had with Danny for many, many years. His dad, Colin Aldridge, was a superstar around the paddocks, and a great sponsor in his time around the paddocks, and we remember him very, very well, taken from us far too young with cancer. But Danny Aldridge, as technical director, is a very important part of the paddock for easing those transitions in rules through. I think they do a great job. But where is that coming from? Where is the next step, technology-wise, coming from? It will be there. No one saw seamless gearboxes. A quote from one of the top guys was, if we'd seen seamless gearboxes coming, we'd abandon them before they got here, because the cost of them is so huge. And once Honda had done it, everybody had to find their way around a seamless gearbox. And they are magnificent, and they really are an enhancement for the road, if you could ever get them cheap enough to put on a road bike. So seamless gearboxes is what a prototype class is all about, is finding something that you can equate at a later stage to the road if it becomes cost effective. but it's so unbelievably dear. Electronics, and went the other way on electronics. We went back almost 5, 6, 7 years worth of technology to come to the electronics package that we now have on MotoGP bikes. Honda had by far and away the most advanced, ECU, inertial platform, electronics combination of any of the manufacturers. And of course, when it became a spec unit, if you like, as an overall unit between the inertial platform and the ECU, the two brains on a motorbike. Once we got to that stage, Honda's advantage was lost, and ever since then, Honda have had a job taming that bloody thing. It's the wildest motorbike out there because they don't have that packaging. It'd be like flying a super Blackbird with cables or something. If you were thinking of a stealth fighter, instead of it being fly-by-wire, you've got an old cable that goes to the back to steer it with. Life became quite hard for a lot of people when those electronics were taken away. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to next year. Well, aren't we all already? I mean, and I'm looking forward to hearing what those developments may be and what they may allow as developments come 2022.
Well, Pete, I know you've got some strong thoughts on this as well, because, the racing is closer than ever right now.
That's it. It's this balancing act of the technology and the entertainment, which, as you said earlier, motorsport really now, it has to entertain to be successful. And, have we really lost anything from the entertainment since having this technical freeze? I mean, the racing's been closer than ever. I don't think, unseen developments inside the engine haven't, we missed them. I mean, the top speeds have gone up anyway. You've
got to go forwards, though.
Exactly. So you've got to balance the two things.
Technology.
So at the moment, we have this kind of one season figure, don't we? Of the freeze is one season, and if it wasn't for the pandemic, that it would have remained like that. Now we've seen that figure, if you like, has been extended over 2 seasons. And so does that then change the thinking? We're seeing Moto3 looks like now they'll stop doing this 1 year update. They'll go to maybe 2 seasons, 3 seasons with the same bike. Principally to save costs. That's what it's described as. So we're seeing already that maybe they're going, look, the racing is close enough. We don't need to pump money into this, certainly in the smaller classes. Now, the question is, MotoGP is different. You have to keep the manufacturers interested. They have to be able to develop. At the same time, you have to be able to entertain. You don't want the top speeds going up and up and up. What the big thing we're expecting next year, as far as development, it will be the engines, because they've been frozen for so long. So, I mean, how much, 2 years worth of development, how much quicker will these engines be? This is one question. I mean, and how fast is too fast? And then what do you do? I think the really clever bit with the rules is this concession system. I think that the way that they kind of balance the performance, and in the sense of not giving the teams like Aprilia at the moment, they're not giving them performance. They're giving them the chance to work their way up, aren't they? They're not saying, well, your bike can be 20 kilograms lighter, just instant speed. They're saying, well, you can develop your engine. But if you choose not to do anything, it won't go any quicker. You're going to have to put the work in and make your engine quicker. And I think it's really clever the way they've used that concession rule system. And maybe they can expand that. Instead of allowing the entire engine to be changed every year, maybe if you're at the very front of the championship, you could change part of the engine. Who knows?
Which is what I was saying with the rules are the rules. You can't get around the rules. They're there. They're quite strict anyway. As long as it's not got batteries involved in it.
We've been there, done that. Well, it will be very interesting to see how that unfolds, actually, and also in Moto2 and Moto3. And it is expected, of course, that will all be lifted for next season, which we're all very excited for. But we've still got, we think, quite a few races left of this season. Of course, we've mentioned the cancellations that have occurred in the last couple of weeks, but the good news is we're back. The summer break is coming to an end. It is now race week. That means it is time for Keith and his Insider's Guide. Keith, we're heading to Austria, the Red Bull Ring. The first one's, well, they're calling it the Styrian Grand Prix these days, aren't they? So what to expect at the Red Bull Ring for 2021, Keith?
I go back a long way with the Österreich ring, as was. You got it was the Österreich ring, it was Zeltweg, it was the A1 ring for a while. And then when Massastich put the Red Bull money in it, which, by the way, is Thai, Pete. Did you know that, Red Bull?
Oh.
The original Red Bull was Thai.
I think it's still half-owned or something, isn't it? I think
the offices in Soho Square are full of Thai wines and bits and pieces. Not
way.
that you drink the wine, I have to say, but anyway, it's slightly interesting from that point of view, I suppose, as an aside. But the Red Bull Ring, massive money spent on it, in a beautiful place, well managed, the best from a media sense. Not that I ever got there because it's the other side of the track and it's quite a long way away from the actual action. But the media centre itself is beautiful, and the tunnel underneath, and they put pictures of all the superstars. You know, they change them from the car weekend to the bike weekend. All the little things, all the things that cost money get changed between the two. You're not stuck with it being a Formula One circuit that we're riding at, or them a MotoGP circuit that the Formula One cars go to. It is individual every time. Wonderful personality to the place. You know, when you're driving in, there's field. If you want to go, the big problem you have with the Red Bull Ring, Österreich Ring, which unfortunately is neutered a little bit because the Österreich Ring was a magnificent circuit with some really fast corners on it. Great racetrack, but super dangerous. So it's had to be neutered a little bit to bring it back to where it is now. Very fast. Turn 3 was a problem last year for anybody that remembers that massive bomb site that was, Valentino Rossi with a bike flying over his head and Morbidelli going down Zarco clipping the pair of them. But they've not really done any extra work. I was watching with interest a Formula One race from there the other week just to see what they've done with Turn 3, and it looks like they've kind of just extended that barrier a little bit. So if somebody does go down the right-hand side of the track, they're going to be collected by a fairly large barrier. How you make any corner with the personality of that one safe is virtually impossible. There's many, many tracks where if you fall off on one corner and the bike picks up, it's going to go across another corner. That's worldwide. You're going to find tracks like that. Fixing it is virtually impossible. But I think they've done the best they can. But getting back to the so-called insider side of it, beautiful part of the world, absolutely delightful where it is, easy to get to. If you were at the check round the week before or something, or the week after, depending on how they got it scheduled in the past, you could get weekend to weekend, drive between the two tracks, fantastic drive as well. So if you were going for the Czech round or the Austrian rounds, stay out would be my advice to start with. Have your hire car. You can do deals on hire car for a week-long hire or whatever it is. Make sure you've got the right stickers on the windows, otherwise you get caught with a Czech car in Austria or an Austrian car in Czechoslovakia or Czech Republic, as it is obviously now. I'm not going back much, am I? But the point being is you do need to make sure that you've got that trick covered. Otherwise, the police wait for the other side of the border and slap a fine on you straight away as soon as you get your hire car in the next country. It's easy to do at the hire car desk. Hotels are a problem there because I don't know how they do it with Formula One. I really don't, because they go in masses of people. But there are not many hotels nearby, and certainly not many nice ones. If you are smart, you'll have booked one of them beautiful little chalets that are up on the hillside somewhere, looking down over the valley, and be living the life of Riley. That would be my advice. If you can book it 5 years in advance, well worth whatever you do. Local towns are really good fun, really good value. Food's good. Beer is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I've got to tell you, it comes in the biggest mugs you've ever seen in your life. So you take bigger T-shirts because you'll need them. You'll be putting on weight, that's for sure. The track itself, plenty of access everywhere, great access roads. You can get all the way around the track. You can see a lot there. Weather, it can be anywhere where it's as green as it is there. You know they have a lot of rain. So you can be either way on this one. It can be flooding off the hillside, or it can be absolutely baking your whatsits off. It can be really warm there as well. So you have to go prepared for all seasons, really, at the Red Bull Ring. What do you look out for on track? Fast motorbikes, obviously. Again, I think Ducati, KTM are going to be looking good here. Suzuki, Yamaha, perhaps not so good. But the great thing about the Red Bull Ring is there is opportunities for both motorbikes on different parts of the track. So you do get that mix-up. You get the really fast stuff that, is good for the really fast stuff. And then you get the bit coming around towards the end of the lap. It cooks brakes there as well. Remember, Viñales went with the old-style Brembos. He liked the feel of the old-style Brembos better than the recommended by Brembo for the Red Bull Ring, and therefore his front brake caliper, its disc, exploded. It exceeded its temperature, exploded into turn 1 on that uphill drag. And if you remember, he had to jump off the thing, and the bike went straight in. I can't believe that motor was reusable. they used that motor again. I thought it would be just be finished with, swallowed everything there was around it, because it was a bomb site where it went off. You've got track limits, which is a major problem at the Red Bull Ring. And it's going to be interesting to see how they manage track limits there as well. I mean, Miguel Oliveira, did he pick up a nice little win there, if you think about it? And that was a track limit situation as well. Lots of people running off here and running off there. Moto 2 was exactly the same. That run to the line can be really, really detrimental on that last lap if you run off onto the green stuff on the designated areas where it's designated that you may get an advantage from doing that. So track limits is a major issue too. Needing a tow because of the straight line speed there, Moto 3 particularly, you can find a second just by following someone.
Wow.
And that's 2/3 of the grid, in a Moto 3 race. So you have got to find a tow in Moto 3. There'll be so many rules being broken again this weekend and the weekend after, obviously, because we've got 2 rounds there. But there's no choice. This is the conundrum we were talking slightly about earlier on in this conversation, was that, rules are a problem for Moto 3. They've come up with all the draconian rules, got to start from pit lane. It's been won from pit lane. We've already seen that with that bloody 16-year-old that's doing as well as he is. He won the race from pit lane after being penalised to pit lane. And the same thing here at Red Bull Ring. You've got to take the risk, because you can gain a whole second on those 2 major straights by getting a right tow. If you're geared right, pick up somebody or 2 bikes right down those straights, that will add to nearly a second off your lap time. And there's no rider or team in the world that can't do with that. You need it. You've got to have it. You've got to work it out. Having said that, we've got to hope that the Moto3 grid can actually start telling the time so they can get their riders out before the checkered flag comes out at the end of the session. They don't seem to have actually got past that first hurdle of being able to tell the time. Once they get that sort of dynamic sorted, they should be all right.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting one to watch, and picking up on the track limits thing as well. That's going to be another issue. Pete's actually just written a really good article, which is on Crash.net at the moment, looking at all the track limits conundrums we've had so far this season. I think is probably the most polite way to put it. But Pete, it's going to be another thing to watch as well. Without giving your predictions away, what are you going to be having a look at this weekend?
I think the really interesting thing this weekend is that last year we didn't get a complete race. As Keith has mentioned, with the brake failure and the accident between Zarco and Morbidelli, we had these sprint races. We basically had 4 sprint races. So we didn't get to see actually who, could run, for example, with full fuel, shall we say, if anyone would have been limited by the fuel capacity. It's a hard acceleration circuit, a lot of straights. We don't know who would have struggled with the tyre wear at the end of the race. Now, so there's a lot sort of open, I think, more than some of the previous rounds that we went to last year. We know the Ducati is going to go well here. Last year's win by Oliveira, that was the first time that someone other than a Ducati rider had won since the circuit came back on the calendar. Just going back to what Keith was saying about the tunnel under the track with all the posters, I mean, they're fantastic. And one of the things that sort of jumped out to me was that how the track has changed, as Keith was saying. And I think it used to go straight on at turn 1, it looks like, and was a lot longer. Now, as you're also saying, the track doesn't look like it's going to be modified for this year, but it seems like there might be some sort of modification done to that sort of the area where Zarco and Morbidelli collided, maybe in time for next year. Now, I don't know if it's going to maybe be similar to the sort of layout that they might have had previously. It looks quite incredible. I think it carried on straight on and up and over the hill by the look of the posters anyway in the past. I mean, Keith would know, but maybe be great if they could sort of make that a bit longer and, make the circuit a bit longer. It is quite a short circuit, but as Keith said, that's great if you're a spectator. You can sit, and because it is on a hillside,
see the whole thing.
You can see a lot of the track from one place. You've got great views. The media centre is the best of the season. Who cares about that apart from those that sit in it? But it's a great event, and it's in a fantastic place. The views are just incredible.
It really is one of the most beautiful backdrops, isn't it, for a race? Now, before I get you to give your predictions and me, let's just see off a couple of our lovely listener questions as well. We've had quite a few. I'm going to roll some over to the next show because as we're in Austrian mode, we're going to pick up on the Austrian-specific questions, I think. And Mayo, 2016, has asked, what's your prediction result for Pedrosa and Crutchlow in Styria?
I like that. I hate you, Mayo.
Well, I think you already said you think top 10, didn't you, right at the start of this show for both of them?
Yeah, top 10, but he's been a bit more
Yeah.
specific than that, isn't he, Mayo? He'd expect nothing less. Otherwise, it will look like I've got splinters on my backside sat on the fence. You can't have that. Can't have anybody thinking that about me. I think then, in that case, top 10 for Dani, top 8 for Cal.
Okay.
No, actually, I'm going to modify that. Cal crashes.
Okay. All right, then. That's very specific. Pete?
I think they're both between 8th and 10th. I think it's possible. I mean, it depends on how many retirements, etc., etc. But I certainly I think I wouldn't be shocked, let's say, by that kind of result. I think you've got to remember that they haven't raced for a long time. What about the weather? Are we going to have an interrupted weekend? If they don't get many dry sessions and then they go into the race, because it's in the hills. Obviously, it's almost like you see the clouds come over and bang, you've got a rain cloud. As Keith was saying, all this green grass, it's green for a reason. There's a lot of unpredictable weather around. So, and there's a lot of things that could happen. But I think that would be a realistic target.
And that causes huge trouble for Michelin as well. We're going to a track where it could be 45, 50 degrees track temperature or 10. Massive difference in track temperature or wet, of course. So, I mean, Michelin have got a hell of a job on for this weekend as well. And no testing been done there for ages. So it's going to be a very interesting weekend. So Mayo, we don't know is the answer.
That's the usual answer. What about this one though, from MM93 fan? After the 5-week break, how well is Mark going to perform? What are your predictions on him? How is he going to improve in this second half of the season?
One thing you can be absolutely sure of, he will be improving. Marc Marquez is an animal. He will be 3 or 4 weeks fitter. He's been out on a motocross bike. He will be tuning himself. It's going to be lively around this racetrack. It's going to be interesting to see how much of the original Mark is back come these 2 rounds. The good thing about having 2 rounds back to back, I mean, you might think that the win of the first week is obviously going to be the win of the second week. Absolutely not. You look at the results and you can see that doesn't work that way. I think Jack Miller was probably the most consistent last time out with the second and third of the 2 weeks, but the others were all over the hockey. A lot of that is down to what Pete's already said. They were split race, sprint races, and so on and so forth. No, it's going to be tricky.
I think what we've seen is that it's not Mark's performance is not just about Mark's fitness. I think that's what we thought it would be, but we've realised and it's become apparent that there's a lot of work to be done on the bike. And I think that was maybe underestimated coming into this season. I think people thought with the 2 podiums by Alex at the end of last year, it was, well, if Alex as a rookie can finish on the podium, Mark, when he's even 60, 70% fit, he'll be on the podium. But we've seen that the bike seems to have gone in a direction that certainly Mark didn't really want, it turns out. So
that was always going to be the question, though, wasn't it? When other people rode his bike for that length of time or rode, and developed it, we asked that question right from the get-go. How much would it be going towards the other riders' styles and away from Mark's? And yeah, there's got to be, or got to have been, a little bit of that involved in it, you would have thought.
But certainly fitness-wise, you've got to believe that hopefully after this break, he'll be at a stage where he's not limited by his physical condition anyway near as much.
But he is. You can only see the way he's on a bike. He doesn't look right on a bike yet. Clearly that arm is in such a state that he can't position himself on the bike where he needs to, where he wants to. And it looks awkward. And it depends on, left or right-handers as well. I mean, the guy's working his way through much bigger problems than people are giving him credit for, I think. I mean, I think he's got a lot of work to do. You're right about his fitness. His overall fitness, I don't think is that far away. But I think mechanically, he's still not right. When he sits on a motorbike, he ain't like he was. Will he ever be?
the change during the summer break for his fitness is that we've seen he's back on, doing dirt track, which he obviously loves, and he's been on the CBR 600, I think, as well. So
did you see that? Did you see those clips?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Put him in a Super Sport 600.
He hasn't been putting his feet up. Yeah.
Unreal. Made me step back from the screen when I watched it.
Well, it is not long to go until we get to have a proper answer to all of these questions. And all that's left really to do, as we've hit over an hour now, is back to the predictions, gentlemen. Pete, I'm going to let you go first this time. Who's your winner for the Styrian Grand Prix?
I mean, it's such a... If you look at it on paper, as we say, we had 4 sprint races, and Keith's already highlighted this. The only guy that was in the top 3 in all 4, if you like, was Jack Miller. So I think if you're going to look at that, on paper, I think on that basis, let's say that he was consistently up there, and he's on a Ducati, which helps him out there. I know that the KTM is quick this year, and KTM won last year, but yeah, I think I'll go with Jack on that basis. Let's say that he's now with the factory team and he's won 2 races already. I think it's the perfect place for him to kind of revive his season after a couple of maybe races that disappointed him a bit just at the end, Aston and things like that. So yeah, I'll go with Jack.
I couldn't agree more. So while I try and find someone else to predict, Keith, who's your choice?
Because of tyre management and the way he rides a motorbike, and I'm guessing it's going to be warm there, it's going to be longer races than last year, I'm going Zarco Miller Quartararo. Zarco Miller Quartararo. I think Zarco is he's sweet on tyres. Be interesting to see what he's got left at the end of the race.
Okay.
So that's my top 3.
If you get the top 3, I'll give you a bonus point if you get the full 3 as well. Okay, so we've got Miller, Zarco. I'm going to go... Now, I know it wasn't a straightforward win last time, but they're looking very good this year. He's looking particularly good, and I'm hoping that confidence is key as well around Austria. So I'm going to go with Miguel Oliveira as my winner for come Sunday for the Styrian Grand Prix. So we've got 3 different ones there, which is always how it is, because otherwise this game wouldn't work. But but Keith's thrown in a top 3.
It's not a game,
it's not
Harry.
A game.
It's not a game. It's serious.
Deadly serious. And don't forget, I've still got a whole long list of all of our, not just ours, but all of our listeners' top 3 championship predictions as well. So when it gets to the crucial points, there's going to be some name calling, I think, come the end of this season as well, to find out who was way off and who was spot on. Okay, so Pete, Miller, Keith, Zarco Miller Quartararo, and I have gone Oliveira. Well, we shall wait and see what happens. It all kicks off, of course, on Friday, and the race on Sunday. We will then return with you same time next week, every Tuesday, for more MotoGP chat on crash.net. But you can, of course, keep up to date with all the very latest across this week and this weekend on the website. Any questions, send them in all the usual ways as well. Leave them in the comments section or tweet, Instagram, Facebook us. Just search Crash MotoGP and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts as well. And we shall see you right back here next week. Keith, Pete, many thanks as always. See you next time.